After a very disappointing season the New York Rangers just had, as they did not even make playoffs, I'm sure this team will be very hungry and are definitely going to be looking to get right back on track to making the playoffs and possibly going on a bit of a run. And with that being said, if they want to get back on track there and want to make the playoffs, a lot of these players are probably going to have to produce a bit better offensively and probably have a bit higher point totals than what they had in 2024-25. So in today's video, we are going to be taking a look at NHL.com's point projections for a bunch of top New York Rangers players, as well as a rookie, a couple possible breakout candidates, and some other players as well. But also, we're going to take a look at a win projection here for Igor Shesterkin as well. So we're going to take a look at a bunch of New York Rangers players kind of point projections here, as well as Igor Shesterkin's win projection in today's video. So let's just start off here with the first player, which is Artemi Panarin. And of course, they have him projected to be the top scorer once again for the New York Rangers, which is not surprising at all. He's been doing that for quite a while now. He's the top offensive threat still on this team. And to me, if he finished with less than the top points on this team, I would be kind of shocked. So him being at the top here makes absolutely a ton of sense. And last season, he didn't have the greatest overall kind of run, but still put up some phenomenal numbers, having 80 games played, 37 goals, 52 assists, 89 total points, and their projection has him at 95 points for this upcoming season, which I think is a pretty fair kind of mark to be at. We saw him, not last season, but the previous one back in 2023-24, him have that massive 120-point season. I'm not quite sure we're going to see that high of a total again, but I definitely think 95 or 100 plus points is definitely still in the realm of possibilities for someone like Artemi Panarin, and I definitely expect him to be the top point producer once again for this team. Next up here, we've got JT Miller, and this is someone who I think is potentially going to have a monster season for the Rangers. He is definitely a very talented kind of two-way player. He's good defensively, good offensively, of course, can put up some great point totals there, bring some toughness, physicality, some energy, all that kind of good stuff as well. But just all in all, a really great kind of two-way center, phenomenal face-off taker as well. So just a great centerman to have on your team. And he, of course, had 35 points in 32 games played once he did join the Rangers after being traded from Vancouver Canucks, where with the Canucks, he only had 35 points in 40 games played, so same point total there, but in 8 less games played with the Rangers, so definitely played a lot better, and I think with a full offseason now, being with the team there, and going into a full kind of season with the team, I don't see why he can't get back up to around that kind of 100-point totals, but they do have his projection at 79, which is definitely a little lower than kind of what I'm hoping / expecting. Of course, it does kind of depend on which players he's, put with, so we'll see what they decide to do, but all in all, I definitely am expecting him to be a bit better than 79, definitely hoping for a lot more towards that kind of 100-point mark, which he did get back in 2023-24, where he got 103 points in 81 games played. Next up here, we've got Igor Shesterkin, who has a win total projection for this upcoming season of 33. This past season, he had 27 wins. The previous one, 36, then 37, and then 36 once again. So he has consecutively kind of put up some pretty good win totals. Obviously, this past season was not the greatest, but the previous 3 ones were quite good. So hopefully he can get back on track more towards those kind of 36, 37 win totals there. And if he can do that, I think that would be great. So 33 wins seems like a somewhat decently fair kind of projection there, but I am kind of hoping for, a little more than that, of course, because we have seen him, do that quite consistently in the past, get a little higher than that, so hopefully he can get back towards those much better numbers. But next up here, we've got Adam Fox and his point projection at 70, which is quite fair, I think. I mean, this is someone who has consistently put up around that kind of 70-point total for the most part over the last kind of, 4 seasons or so almost. This past one, of course, did only have 61 points in 74 games played, so was little off that there with only 74 games played. But then the previous season there has 73 points in 72 games played. The previous one before that, 72 points in 82 games played. Then 74 points in 78. And then even before that, back in that kind of shortened season there, in 2020-21, he ended up having 55 games played, 47 points. So he has consistently been kind of around that kind of 70-point mark, kind of on a 82-game pace, you could say, for sure, over the last kind of 5 seasons or so now. So I definitely am expecting him to be right around that point total once again. And if he can stay healthy for a full season there and, play a kind of at least kind of mid-70s kind of game total there, I definitely don't see why he can't get at least 70 points throughout this upcoming season. Next up here is Vincent Trocheck, who ended up having an 18-point drop-off from, last season to the previous one, where, he ended up having 59 points this past season, 82 games played, but then the previous season had 77 points in 82 games played. So an 18-point drop-off there is pretty massive. So I'm definitely hoping he can kind of get back on track there with those numbers offensively this upcoming season, when maybe he'll be with the same line once again there with Lafreniere and Panarin. We'll have to wait and see whether or not they decide to switch things up, but I definitely, no matter what, hoping he can get back kind of going towards that kind of 70-point total, which I definitely think would be quite possible. So his projection being at 68 to me definitely makes a lot of sense. And next up here, we've got Mika Zibanejad, who this past season, of course, had a pretty weird one where he started off at center, did not play good at all, really, and then made the switch to wing, where he started to look a lot better. So I'm hopeful he'll start the season on wing to begin this one, and I think if he does that, hopefully he'll be a lot better offensively and be able to put up some pretty good point totals, which he ended up producing a lot better offensively on wing than what he was doing at center to start the season. So him being on wing, I would imagine we're going to get some more offense out of him. And, this past season, he finished with 62 points in 82 games played there, 20 goals, 42 assists. I am definitely hoping to see that goal total go up by a good amount there, like at least 5 or 6 minimum, if not like 10. I would much rather see him, of course, get closer to that kind of 30 goal mark than 20. So I think that's a big question mark there with this kind of team in general is Mika Zibanejad. What are we going to get out of a guy like this? Because he has some great offensive talent, but there definitely is some question marks with kind of what position he's going to play and kind of what we're going to get out of him, really. So I'm kind of hoping for, something around that kind of 70-point mark at a zip, especially if he is on wing to kind of beginning pretty much for the entire season there. So if he's doing that, I don't see why we can't get around like 30 goals, 40-something assists at least. Something around there definitely seems quite possible for someone of this caliber. I mean, I know he hasn't played the greatest over the last couple seasons here, but I do think what we saw from him on wing was a whole lot better than what he was doing at center. So if he stays on wing, I don't see why he can't put up some pretty great point totals. And they do have his projections at 67, which I think is maybe a little low, kind of what I'm hoping for. But again, that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping to see kind of like 70-plus points out of Zib, but I definitely could be wrong here. Maybe we do see a whole lot less. Next up, NHL.com has a little kind of breakout candidates kind of category, and they have 2 players listed in this spot, Alexis Lafreniere and Will Cooley. First off, with Lafreniere, I'm not quite sure why they have him in this kind of spot here with the breakout candidates, because this is a player who, his previous career high was in 2023-24. It's not this past season, but the one before that, when he actually had a real breakout where he had 57 points that season. His projection here for this upcoming one is only 58, which, yes, is a big jump up from this past season where he only had 45, but he's previous career high was only like a season ago or whatever, and that was at 57. So not quite sure why they have him in breakout kind of candidates category here. And then for Will Cooley, he also had 45 points this past season. So I guess an 8-point jump is a bit of a breakout, but he really had that kind of breakout this past season. So unless he's putting up 60-plus points, to me, I'm not quite sure it makes a whole lot of sense to have him in this kind of breakout kind of candidates category either. But these are definitely going to be 2 very key players for the Rangers in this upcoming season. And I definitely think we could possibly see Will Cooley and Lafreniere both get around that 60-point mark offensively. Maybe it'll be a little higher, a little lower, depending on the kind of power play time here for these guys. But overall, I definitely am expecting a pretty great season offensively from both of them. And I'm hoping for at least, at minimum, 50-plus points from each, with the capability of definitely putting up around 60 on the higher end of things. Next up here, we've got Gabe Perreault, who has a point projection of 45, which is definitely quite interesting. I mean, in that limited sample size he had with the Rangers at the end of last season, of course, he did not get a single point, and I'm going to be honest, he didn't look that good. I mean, I know it was his first kind of initial kind of moments in the NHL, so you got to cut him a little slack, but I don't think he looked that good. So to me, I have been kind of thinking whether or not he should start in the AHL. I think that's still a bit of a question, so we'll have to wait and see what the decision is with him, whether to start in the AHL or N. But I do think 45 points, if he's able to get that in his rookie season there, this upcoming one, that would be quite phenomenal. And last but definitely not least is Vladislav Gavrikov, and they have his point projection at 35, which would be a career high. Of course, he is known as being a kind of shutdown, more defensive defenseman, of course, a somewhat physical player, could block a lot of shots there, but just be a good, reliable defensive defenseman. So his point total being at 35 would be pretty incredible, I think. This past season, he had 30 points, 5 goals, 25 assists in 82 games played. The previous season was 23 points in 77 games played, and his actual actual career high was all the way back in 2021-22 with 33 points, 5 goals, 28 assists in 80 games played with the Columbus Blue Jackets. So I think 35 points would definitely be pretty incredible for a kind of shutdown defensive defenseman, but going alongside Foxy definitely could up his offensive game. Anyways, that's going to do it for today's video. If you have enjoyed, definitely don't forget to click that like and subscribe button for daily New York Rangers content, as I do post every single day a video about the New York Rangers. And also, of course, definitely don't forget to comment down below your thoughts on today's video and, what are your thoughts on these point projection here? And also, what are your projections on some of these players as well? What do you think a guy like Gabe Perreault could get in his first season there in the NHL, a first full one, of course, and some other guys as well? Let me know your thoughts and projections. I'll catch you next one, and let's go Rangers.